Today we're going to talk about adding and subtracting decimals. There's only one rule for both adding and subtracting decimals, and that's line up the decimal points. Most of the time when you see an addition or subtraction problem with decimals, you'll see it lined up, like the first set of numbers I have there in blue, 23 and 12 hundredths plus 175 and 2 tenths. We never want to attack a decimal problem like that. We always want to stack it. And stacking it is where the majority of problems that occur with decimals is what happen. That's where most of those problems occur. If you look on the left, that is the incorrect way to stack your problem. Notice that in this method, I have 2 stacked above the 1, 3 stacked above the 7, 1 stacked above the 5, and 2 stacked above the 2. Just because both sets of numbers have 4 digits does not mean they are following the right place value. You always need to line up numbers based on the place value. So when we tell you line up a number based on the decimal point, we're really telling you to line up all the place values together. Notice that in this first problem on the left, I end up not even knowing where to put my decimal point, either before or after the 6, based on the fact that I have decimals in random spots throughout my problem. Take a look to the right and you'll notice a much neater version of the problem. I've lined up my decimal point, and as you can see, this is the first thing that I do in the problem. I put that decimal point right there because I've lined it up. I know that my answer will have the decimal point in that location. Then, as I always do, I start adding from the right to the left. You just add like normal. 2 plus 0 would equal 2. That's 2 hundredths plus 0 hundredths equals 2 hundredths. 1 tenth plus 2 tenths equals 3 tenths. The decimals all lined up correctly. 3 plus 5 equal 8. 2 tens plus 7 tens equal 9 tens. And 0 hundreds plus 100 equals 100. So I end up with 198 and 32 hundredths. Again, drop the decimal before doing the operation. Then once you've done that, you could do the operation as you would if there was no decimal present. It's really simple. It keeps all your place values connected, as you're going to see in the next slide. So in this slide coming up, you'll notice that I've done the same thing, only I've shown you the place values. So again, teachers will say line up the decimal points, and really what they mean is line up all your place values correctly. So you're adding all your ones to ones and tens to tens and hundredths to hundredths. Again, that is the biggest problem. A lot of times with these things, a student will add a 1 to a tenth and mess everything up. You could use zeros as space fillers when the numbers go to different place values. So for example here, I didn't have anything in the 100 column for that top number. So I just put in a 0 there as a placeholder. It doesn't affect the problem in any way, just makes it easier to look at. Same thing on the bottom there. On the second number, I had nothing in the hundredth, so I wrote in my own 0. I did the addition, and after lining up the number, do your operation the same way you would as if there was no decimal. So the hardest part for adding and subtracting decimals is actually writing them and lining them up. So remember to stack. Here are the key points. Line up the numbers of an addition or subtraction problem based on the decimal point. Drop the decimal point down to where you will calculate your answer, and use zeros as place value holders. I'm going to give you 2 examples, one addition and one subtraction. So as you see in the first one on the left in black, 123 and 2 tenths plus 63 and 18 hundredths. First thing I did is I lined up my decimal points. I wrote my decimal point in the answer as represented by that green arrow. I wrote in the zeros that I needed to hold place holders, and I added from right to left. 0 plus 8 is 8, 2 plus 1 is 3, my decimal point goes right there, 3 plus 3 is 6, 2 plus 6 is 8, and 1 plus 0 is 1. I ended up with 186 and 38 hundredths. A more complicated problem is when I do subtraction using the same method. I'm going to use the same numbers. Again, line up the numbers based on the decimal point. Do not be scared by the fact that when you do your first calculation, you're doing 0 minus 8. That nothing is the same thing as a 0. Just write in a 0, don't worry about it, and then treat it as any other subtraction problem. So I'm just showing you the zeros here. I'll go down so we can actually take a look at the operation. Just as in any subtraction problem, I'm going to borrow from the 2, so that 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. Since I borrowed from that 2, it's now a 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. Decimal point goes right there. 3 minus 3 is 0. 12 minus 6 is 6. And that's it. My answer is 60 2/2. Your turn. What I want you to do is do these following 4 problems. I'm showing them to you in a straight line, and your job is going to be to stack them and line up the decimal points correctly. Then go ahead and solve those problems. And my apologies, the last one's kind of faded. The decimal point for this last problem goes right there. Good luck.